The church was silent, save for the rustle of silk and the faint hum of anticipation. Emma stood at the altar, her white dress glowing under the stained glass light, but her eyes darted to the back of the room, searching for her. Lily, her best friend, her secret, was there watching, waiting, and holding a truth that could unravel everything. Emma had always known this day would come, the one where she'd stand before a crowd and pledge her life to someone else. At 28, she was the picture of a perfect bride. Auburn hair pinned elegantly, hazel eyes bright with nerves, and a smile that masked the storm inside. She'd chosen David, dependable and kind, because he was safe, because he fit the life her family envisioned. But safety was a cage, and Lily was the key she'd never dared to turn. Lily, 27, sat in the last pew, her short black hair tousled, her leather jacket out of place among the pastel dresses and tailored suits. She was the artist, the rebel, the one who'd loved Emma since their college days in Boston, when late-night study sessions turned into confessions under starlight. Lily had never hidden who she was, a lesbian, unapologetic and fierce, but she buried her feelings for Emma, knowing her friend wasn't ready to face the truth. Until now. The wedding was a spectacle, a performance for Emma's conservative family and David's corporate friends. The venue, a historic church in upstate New York, dripped with elegance. Chandeliers, roses, and a string quartet playing softly. Emma's mother, Patricia, had orchestrated every detail, from the imported lace on the gown to the guest list that included Lily only at Emma's insistence. "She's my best friend," Emma had argued, her voice trembling. Patricia had relented, unaware of the history that pulsed between them. As the officiant began, Emma's heart raced. She glanced at Lily again, and their eyes met, a spark that burned through the pretense. Lily's gaze was a question, a plea, a warning. Emma had invited her for a reason, not just to witness but to act. In her purse, Lily carried a recording, a voicemail Emma had left her 3 nights ago, drunk on wine and courage, confessing everything she'd never said aloud. "I love you, Lily," the message began, raw and unfiltered. "I've always loved you, and I don't know if I can do this." The ceremony continued, but Emma's mind was elsewhere. She remembered the summer after college, when she and Lily had driven cross-country, sleeping in cheap motels and laughing until dawn. They'd stopped at a lake in Colorado, the water mirroring the mountains, and Lily had kissed her. It was brief, electric, and terrifying. Emma had pulled away, citing family, faith, and fear. But that kiss had haunted her, a ghost that lingered in every quiet moment. David, oblivious, squeezed her hand. He was 30, handsome in a clean-cut way, with a steady job in finance and a smile that charmed everyone. He loved Emma, or at least the version of her she'd let him see. But as the officiant asked if anyone objected, Emma's breath caught. She looked at Lily, whose hand was already reaching for her purse. Lily stood, her movement drawing gasps from the crowd. Patricia's face tightened and David's brow furrowed. "Emma," Lily said, her voice steady but thick with emotion, "you don't have to do this." She pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over the play button. The room held its breath, and Emma's world tilted. The recording began, Emma's voice echoing through the church. "Lily, I can't stop thinking about you. I'm marrying David, but it's you I dream about. I'm scared, but I love you." The words were a knife cutting through the facade. Guests whispered, some horrified, others intrigued. Patricia stood, her face pale, but Emma didn't move. She stared at Lily, tears welling, knowing this was the moment she both dreaded and craved. David stepped back, his expression a mix of confusion and betrayal. "Emma, what is this?" he asked, his voice low. She couldn't answer, not yet. The recording continued, Emma's voice breaking. "I don't know how to be brave like you, Lily, but I want to try." The church felt smaller, the air heavier, as the truth settled over everyone. Lily crossed the aisle, ignoring the stares. She stopped in front of Emma, her eyes searching. "You invited me here to show you I'd fight for you," she said softly. "So here I am." Emma's heart pounded, torn between the life she'd planned and the one she'd denied. The crowd waited, the officiant frozen, and David's gaze burned into her. In that moment, Emma saw 2 paths. One safe, predictable, and hollow. The other uncertain, vibrant, and true. She reached for Lily's hand, her fingers trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered, not to David but to herself, for all the years she'd spent hiding. The church erupted in murmurs, but Emma didn't care. She squeezed Lily's hand, feeling the weight of her choice. This was only the beginning, a fracture in the life she'd known. But as she looked into Lily's eyes, she felt something new: freedom. The chaos in the church was deafening, a cacophony of whispers, gasps, and the occasional chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Emma stood frozen, her hand still clutching Lily's, as the weight of her confession hung in the air. She could feel David's eyes on her, his shock morphing into something harder, something that cut deeper than she'd expected. "Emma," David said, his voice tight. "Explain this. Now." His tone was calm, but the undercurrent of hurt was unmistakable. He deserved an answer, but Emma's throat was dry, her words trapped behind years of silence. She glanced at Lily, whose expression was a mix of defiance and vulnerability, urging her to speak. "I'm sorry, David," Emma finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." She turned to him, her eyes pleading for understanding, but his face was a mask of disbelief. The guests were a blur: her mother's horrified stare, her father's clenched jaw, friends shifting uncomfortably in their seats. But Lily was clear, solid, the only thing grounding her. Patricia stormed forward, her heels clicking sharply. "This is unacceptable," she hissed, her face inches from Emma's. "You're embarrassing yourself, this family, and David. Stop this nonsense immediately." Her words were a whip, but Emma didn't flinch. For the first time, she saw her mother not as an authority but as a woman afraid of losing control. "Mom, I can't," Emma said, her voice gaining strength. "I've been lying to everyone, including myself. I love Lily. I always have." The admission felt like shedding a skin, raw and liberating. Patricia's eyes widened, but before she could respond, Lily stepped closer, her presence a shield. "Mrs. Carter," Lily said, her tone firm but respectful, "Emma's not a child. She's making her choice." The words were a challenge, and Patricia's lips tightened into a thin line. The crowd watched, some leaning forward, others turning away, as if the truth was too much to bear. David cleared his throat, drawing attention back to him. "So what? You've been lying to me this whole time." His voice cracked and Emma's heart ached. She'd never meant to hurt him. David was good, steady, the kind of man who'd planned a life with her kids, a house in the suburbs, stability. But stability wasn't love, not the kind that set her soul on fire. "I didn't know how to tell you," Emma said, tears spilling over. "I thought I could be what you wanted, what everyone wanted. But I can't." She looked at Lily, whose eyes were soft, encouraging. "I'm in love with her." The church seemed to hold its breath. David ran a hand through his hair, his face a battleground of emotions. "So why invite her? Why do this here?" he demanded, gesturing to the crowd. "You could have told me privately. You didn't have to humiliate me." Emma swallowed hard. He was right, she could have spared him this. But the truth had been a pressure building inside her, and Lily's presence, the recording, was the only way she could break free. "I needed her here," she admitted. "I needed to know I could be brave." Lily squeezed her hand, a silent promise. But the moment was shattered when Patricia grabbed Emma's arm, pulling her away from Lily. "You're confused," she said, her voice low and urgent. "This isn't you. You're not. Like that." The words stung, but Emma yanked her arm free. "I am," she said, her voice steady now. "And I'm done pretending." The crowd murmured, some in shock, others in quiet support. A few of Emma's college friends exchanged knowing glances. They'd seen her and Lily together, the way they'd light up in each other's presence. But for most, this was a scandal, a disruption of the perfect narrative. David turned away, his shoulders slumped. "I need air," he muttered, walking down the aisle and out the heavy oak doors. The officiant, a gray-haired man who'd married countless couples, looked lost, his script useless. Emma felt a pang of guilt, but it was overshadowed by the relief of finally speaking her truth. Lily stepped closer, her voice low. "You okay?" she asked, her eyes searching Emma's. There was no judgment, only love, and it made Emma's chest ache. She nodded, though her hands were trembling. "I didn't expect it to feel like this," she whispered. "Free but terrifying." Lily smiled, a small reassuring curve of her lips. "It's supposed to be terrifying. That's how you know it's real." She glanced at the crowd, then back at Emma. "What do you want to do now?" Emma looked around at the faces of judgment and curiosity, at her mother's rigid posture, at the empty space where David had stood. She wanted to run, to disappear with Lily and leave this mess behind. But she knew she couldn't, not yet. She had to face the fallout to own her choice. "Let's go," she said finally, her voice firm. She took Lily's hand, and together they walked down the aisle, past the stunned guests, past Patricia's outstretched hand, out into the crisp autumn air. The world outside was bright, the leaves a riot of red and gold, and for the first time Emma felt like she could breathe. But as they stepped onto the church lawn, Patricia's voice followed. "Emma, you can't just walk away," she shouted, her composure cracking. Emma turned, meeting her mother's eyes. "I'm not walking away," she said. "I'm choosing to live." The air outside the church was sharp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Emma and Lily stood on the lawn, hands still clasped, the weight of what had just happened settling like dust after a storm. The church doors loomed behind them, a portal to a life Emma was leaving behind, and she felt both lighter and heavier than ever. Lily glanced at her, concern flickering in her dark eyes. "You sure about this?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. "Once we leave, there's no going back." Emma nodded, though her heart was racing. She just dismantled her future in front of everyone she knew, and the consequences were only beginning to take shape. Before she could respond, the doors swung open and Patricia stormed out, her face a mask of fury and desperation. "Emma, you're making a mistake," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "You're throwing away everything, your family, your future, for what? A phase." The word stung, but Emma stood her ground. "It's not a phase, Mom," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's who I am." She felt Lily's hand tighten around hers, a silent anchor. Patricia's eyes darted to their joined hands, and her expression hardened. "You're confused," Patricia insisted, stepping closer. "You've always been impressionable, and she jabbed a finger at Lily, has filled your head with nonsense. You're not like her." The accusation hung in the air, and Emma felt a surge of protectiveness for Lily, who'd endured far worse judgment in her life. Lily opened her mouth to respond, but Emma cut her off. "Don't talk about her like that," she said, her voice rising. "Lily's been more honest with me than anyone, including you. You wanted me to be perfect, to fit your mold, but I can't anymore." The words poured out, years of resentment breaking free. Patricia flinched, but Emma didn't stop. "I love her, and I'm done hiding it." The lawn was silent, save for the rustle of leaves skittering across the grass. A few guests had followed Patricia outside, watching from a distance, their whispers a low hum. Emma felt exposed, but she refused to shrink. She'd spent too long making herself small to please others. Patricia's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was cold. "If you choose this, you're choosing to be alone. Your father and I won't support this lifestyle." The threat was a blade, but Emma was surprised to find it didn't cut as deeply as she'd feared. She'd expected this, maybe even prepared for it. "Then I'll figure it out," Emma said, her voice steady. "I'd rather be alone than live a lie." She turned to Lily, whose eyes were shining with pride and something deeper, something that made Emma's heart ache with possibility. Patricia took a step back, her face crumpling. "You're breaking my heart," she whispered, then turned and walked back to the church, her shoulders rigid. Emma watched her go, a pang of grief mixing with her resolve. She loved her mother, but she couldn't sacrifice herself for her approval. Lily tugged gently at her hand. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's get out of here." They walked to Lily's old pickup truck, parked haphazardly at the edge of the lot. The truck was a relic from their college days, dented but reliable, filled with memories of road trips and late-night talks. Emma climbed into the passenger seat, her wedding dress bunching awkwardly, and for a moment they just sat there, the silence heavy with meaning. "Where do we go now?" Emma asked, her voice small. She felt untethered, like a kite cut loose in a storm. Lily reached over, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's face. "Anywhere you want," she said, her smile warm and certain. "We've got time." She started the engine, and they drove away from the church, the autumn landscape blurring past. Emma leaned her head against the window, watching the world shift from the manicured lawns of the suburbs to the open roads of upstate New York. As they drove, Emma's mind replayed the past. She thought of the first time she'd met Lily, at a freshman art class in Boston. Lily had been sketching in the corner, her hands smudged with charcoal, her laugh bright and unself-conscious. They'd become inseparable, sharing dreams and secrets, but Emma had always held back, afraid of what loving Lily might mean. Now, with the truth laid bare, she felt both exhilarated and terrified. "Do you think I ruined everything?" Emma asked, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. Lily glanced at her, her expression serious. "You didn't ruin anything," she said. "You chose yourself. That's not destruction, it's creation." Her words were a balm, and Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek. She reached for Lily's hand, intertwining their fingers. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I don't know what comes next." Lily squeezed her hand. "Neither do I. But we'll figure it out together." The promise was simple, but it carried the weight of years of unspoken love. Emma looked out at the road ahead, the future uncertain but bright with possibility. For the first time, she felt like she was driving toward something real. The road stretched endlessly before them, a ribbon of asphalt winding through fields and forests ablaze with autumn colors. Emma sat in the passenger seat of Lily's truck, her wedding dress a stark contrast to the worn leather interior. The weight of her choice pressed against her chest, but with every mile, it felt less like a burden and more like a beginning. Lily drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on Emma's knee, a quiet reassurance. "You hungry?" she asked, glancing over with a half-smile. "There's a diner up ahead. Best pancakes in the state." Her tone was light, but her eyes were watchful, checking for cracks in Emma's resolve. Emma nodded, grateful for the distraction. "Pancakes sound perfect." They pulled into a small diner off the highway, its neon sign flickering in the dusk. The place was a slice of Americana, checkered floors, vinyl booths, and the smell of coffee and bacon. They slid into a booth by the window, Emma's dress drawing curious glances from the waitress and a few truckers at the counter. "You look like you're running away from something," the waitress, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, said as she poured their coffee. Emma laughed, a nervous sound, but Lily leaned forward, her grin mischievous. "She's running toward something," Lily corrected, her gaze locking with Emma's. The waitress raised an eyebrow, then smiled and left them to their menus. Emma felt a flush of warmth, not just from the coffee but from the way Lily saw her not as a runaway bride but as someone claiming her life. They ordered pancakes and shared a plate, the simple act of eating together grounding Emma in a way she hadn't expected. Between bites, she told Lily about the weeks leading up to the wedding, the pressure from her family, the sleepless nights, the voicemail she'd left in a moment of reckless honesty. "I didn't plan to send it," she admitted, her voice low. "But I couldn't keep pretending." Lily listened, her eyes never leaving Emma's. "I'm glad you did," she said softly. "I've been waiting for you to catch up." There was no judgment in her words, only a quiet patience that made Emma's heart ache. She reached across the table, brushing her fingers against Lily's. "I should have been braver sooner," Emma said. "I wasted so much time." Lily shook her head, her expression fierce. "You're here now," she said. "That's what matters." They sat in silence for a moment, the clink of dishes and hum of conversation filling the space. Outside, the sky deep into indigo, stars beginning to prick through the darkness. As they left the diner, Emma's phone buzzed in her purse. She hesitated, then pulled it out, seeing a string of missed calls and texts from her mother, her sister, even David. The messages were a mix of anger, confusion, and pleas to come back. One from David stood out. "I don't understand, but I want to. Can we talk?" Emma's stomach twisted. She owed him that much, didn't she? Lily noticed her tension and glanced at the screen. "You don't have to decide tonight," she said gently. "Give it time." Emma nodded, slipping the phone back into her purse. She wasn't ready to face David, not yet. She needed to understand herself first. They drove to a small motel nearby, the kind with flickering vacancy signs and peeling paint. Lily paid for a room, and they collapsed onto the creaky bed, still in their clothes. Emma lay on her back, staring at the water-stained ceiling, her wedding dress fanned out like a ghost. Lily propped herself on one elbow, watching her. "What are you thinking?" Lily asked, her voice soft in the dim light. Emma turned her head, meeting Lily's gaze. That I've never felt so free and so lost at the same time, she said. I keep thinking about my mom, David, everyone back there. They're going to hate me. Her voice cracked and Lily reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. They might, Lily said honestly. But you don't need their permission to live your truth. And you're not alone. She leaned closer, her breath warm against Emma's skin. I'm here. I've always been here. Emma turned, closing the distance between them. Their lips met, tentative at first, then deepening with a hunger that had been buried for years. The kiss was a promise, a reclaiming, a homecoming. Emma felt the world fall away, leaving only the warmth of Lily's body, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. They pulled back, breathless, and Emma laughed, a sound of pure relief. I should have done that years ago, she said, her eyes bright. Lily grinned, tucking a strand of hair behind Emma's ear. Better late than never, she said. They lay there, tangled together, talking about everything and nothing, dreams of moving to the city, opening an art gallery, building a life together. For the first time, Emma let herself imagine a future that wasn't scripted by someone else. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and hers. Morning light filtered through the motel's thin curtains, casting a soft glow over Emma and Lily, still curled together on the bed. Emma woke first, her eyes tracing the curve of Lily's jaw, the way her lashes fanned against her cheek. For the first time in years she felt at peace, like she'd finally stepped into her own life. They checked out of the motel and drove toward New York City, the skyline rising like a promise on the horizon. Emma had no plan, no safety net, just Lily and a fragile sense of hope. They stopped at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, a cozy place with exposed brick and mismatched chairs. Over steaming mugs, Emma finally opened David's text again. I need to talk to him, she said, her voice steady. He deserves that. Lily nodded, her expression neutral but supportive. Do what you need to, she said. I'll be here. Emma squeezed her hand, grateful for her unwavering presence. She typed a reply to David, agreeing to meet him that afternoon at a park near his apartment. It wouldn't be easy, but she owed him closure. The park was quiet, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot as Emma approached David. He sat on a bench, his suit replaced by jeans and a sweater, his face weary but not angry. Hey, he said, standing as she approached. Emma's heart clenched, hurt him, and there was no undoing that. I'm so sorry, she began, her voice thick with emotion. I never wanted to hurt you. David nodded, his eyes searching hers. I just don't get it, he said. Why didn't you tell me? We could have figured it out together. His voice was raw, and Emma felt a fresh wave of guilt. I was scared, she admitted. I didn't even admit it to myself until recently. I thought I could be what you needed, but I was lying to both of us. She paused, gathering her courage. I love Lily. I've loved her for years and I can't keep pretending I don't. David looked away, his jaw tight. I loved you, Emma, he said quietly. I still do. But I can't compete with that. He met her eyes again, and there was a flicker of understanding. I hope you find what you're looking for. Tears stung Emma's eyes as she nodded. Thank you, she whispered. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history settling between them. Then David offered a small smile, turned and walked away. Emma watched him go, feeling both loss and relief. She returned to the coffee shop, where Lily was sketching in a notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. Emma slid into the booth and Lily looked up, her eyes softening. How'd it go? She asked. Better than I expected, Emma said. He's hurt, but he'll be okay. She reached for Lily's hand, feeling the warmth of her skin. I'm ready to start over. With you. Lily's smile was radiant, and she leaned across the table to kiss Emma, soft and sure. Then let's do it, she said. They spent the afternoon wandering Brooklyn, dreaming aloud about their Futurian apartment with big windows, a dog, a life built on love, not expectation. Emma knew it wouldn't be easy. Her family might never fully accept her, and the world could be cruel to women like them. But with Lily by her side, she felt ready to face anything. Weeks later, they found a small apartment in the city, a place filled with light and possibility. Emma started working at a bookstore, while Lily took freelance art commissions. They argued sometimes about money or whose turn it was to do the dishes, but they always came back to each other, their love a steady anchor. One evening as they sat on their tiny balcony, watching the city lights, Emma turned to Lily. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked, her voice soft. Lily looked at her, her eyes bright with certainty. "We chose us," she said. "That's always the right thing." Emma leaned against her, feeling the truth of those words. The recording, the wedding, the chowsit had all led to this moment, this life. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that was enough. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.